What are the scariest places in the world? Is it an old dark alley? Or maybe an abandoned house? Perhaps it's something supernatural like ghosts or demons that haunt your dreams. But what if death itself was staring back at you? Here are 5 places where death is never far from view. No. 5. Portugal. The Chapel of Bones. Located in the Portuguese city of Évora, the Chapel of Bones was built inside a monastery church during the 13th century. Some visitors even claim to hear low chanting coming from the walls. It's located about 6 miles outside of Buenos Aires. This cemetery has over 600,000 bodies buried within its grounds. She was the wife of Juan Domingo Perón, who served as president of Argentina from 1946 to 1955, and again from 1973 to 1974. If you want to learn more about the French Revolution, and you should definitely visit the catacombs of Paris. This underground tunneling maze is where over 6 million people lost their lives. Located in the city of Guanajuato, this church was built between 1661 and 1800. Like many other churches on this list, it was designed to remind worshippers of their mortality. But the locals call it the Church of the Bones. The altar and choir area were redesigned to allow more space for visitors. They also installed an organ to replace the choir. The Capuchin crypt is located in the Church of Santa Maria de la Paz. It's filled with the mummified remains of over 3,700 people. But the biggest change was the addition of glass cases. And before you go, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. See you next time. Bye. These displayed the skeletons and mummies in a more organized fashion. Today, the church is still open for visitors. Many come here to pay their respects to the dead or to simply admire the unique architecture. It took almost 200 years to finish construction on the building, but once it was complete, it quickly became overcrowded. This was especially true during special events like Holy Week and All Souls Day. During these times, people would be packed tightly together, shoulder to shoulder, all trying to get a glimpse of the priest. The stench of decaying bodies filled the church, and people would often faint from exhaustion and lack of oxygen. The tunnels stretch over 200 miles and are filled with the bones of those who died during the Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. He was a controversial figure who introduced socialist policies while also cracking down on labor unions. After he was ousted in a military coup, he and Evita went into exile in Spain. 2 years later, he returned to Argentina and ran for president again. But before the election, Evita suffered a miscarriage and was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Instead, they simply walled off the crypt and used it as a storage room. They stored mummies, skeletons, and even organs in there. People paid admission by bringing a cat or dog and then feeding it to the homeless souls trapped inside the crypt. Eventually, they had to stop allowing animals in. Instead, visitors can now purchase food and drinks which they can feed to the spirits. She died in September 1952 and was mourned by thousands. Her body was embalmed and placed in a mausoleum in the City of the Dead. For the next 25 years, people would visit her tomb and ask for her help in times of need. In 1976, her remains were moved to a family plot and the mausoleum was demolished. But her legacy lives on. It opened in 1831 and was originally meant for plague victims. However, it quickly became the main burial ground for the entire city. Before entering the chapel, you'll see a message above the door reading, "We bones wait for yours." Eventually, the city had nowhere to put all the dead bodies, so they started digging mass graves outside the city walls. But by 1800, this wasn't enough either. So they decided to use the underground tunnels as burial chambers. Over the years, people continued to die in the tunnels. Victims of wars, diseases, and political conflicts were all brought here to be entombed. Nowadays, visitors can take guided tours of the catacombs, but most of the tunnels remain unexplored. It's a grim reminder that no matter how hard we try to avoid it, death is inevitable. And eventually our bodies will decompose and become one with the earth, just like these poor souls here. As you may have guessed, the chapel is covered in bones. Parts of the chapel were literally crumbling, so it was deemed unsafe. Apparently some tourists got too close to the bones and accidentally dislodged some of them. Imagine being so disrespectful that you break a bone in a chapel dedicated to the dead. Well, that's what happened here. To prevent further damage, the government removed the bones and placed them in museum exhibits around the city. Now, only a handful of bones remain in the chapel, but it's still plenty to give you goosebumps. Over 5,000 human skeletons were used to decorate this place of worship. Back in the day, monks would come here to pray. They wanted to be reminded of their own mortality, so they could focus on God. It's believed that the bones belonged to people who died from the plague, but nobody really knows for sure. Some say the monks collected the bones from unclaimed bodies that were buried in mass graves. Others say the monks dug up bodies from cemeteries to make the chapel. Either way, it's pretty messed up. Might seem creepy now. The chapel was actually open for visitors until 2019. That's when authorities closed it off due to safety concerns. According to local legend, whenever the room falls silent, you can hear the bones shifting slightly. Number 4. Argentina, the cemetery of the City of the Dead. One of the most famous people buried here is Eva Perón, Cahavita. No. 3. France, Paris catacombs. During the 1790s, there were a lot of executions taking place in Paris. Most of them were carried out by guillotine. Number 2. Mexico, the Catedral de Paraguaya de Santa Maria. The interior is decorated with over 100 life-size skeletons and several mummies. It's also known as the Church of Our Lady of the Remedies. In the early 20th century, the church underwent a major renovation. No. 1. Italy. The Capuchin crypt, tucked away in an Italian monastery, is a crypt that's covered in mummies. In the 16th century, the Capuchin friars used the crypt as a burial ground. Now, it's time to hear from you. Which of these places would you be too scared to visit? Let me know in the comments below.